Hello, welcome back. I'm Robin Kelly, a doctor who's very concerned about both the existing levels of radiofrequency radiation, the non-ionising type, and the coming apparently inevitable rollout of 5G, which has been completely untested on humans, or particularly children now. I'm going to be talking about children today and a ray of hope that comes from the other side of the world, from us, from Cyprus. Their committee, Cyprus Committee on Environmental and Children's Health, had a press release on the 24th of June of this year. And I know they've been very active in this front and very concerned about the effects of wireless radiation on children, but I didn't realise how well coordinated they were. Now, Cyprus has a population of less than 1 million, and it strikes me that this may well be why they've been able to come together away from huge commercial interests. So I know that there are huge commercial interests in every country, wireless interests. So this is these are some extracts from the press conference at 11:30 a.m. on the 24th of June at the Ministry of Health. And at this press conference, there was the Cyprus Office of the Commissioner of Environment and the Press and Information Office, and also the participation of one of their main hospitals, the Archbıshop Makarıos Hospital, and we'll come to that. And I'll start off by quoting the president of the Cyprus Committee. I won't mention all the names because they're quite long and I'll probably muck them up, but I will post the link underneath. I'll call her Dr. Stella. She said that the issue of EMF, RF, radio frequency, electromagnetic frequencies, is a very serious and universal public health problem as it affects the whole population. On the basis of the scientific evidence and the precautionary principle, the matter needs to be and can be addressed directly by reducing active and passive exposure and technology abuse. The basic tool for achieving the goal is raising risk awareness, because ignorance of the risk, advertisements and misinformation cause an extreme enthusiasm and growing children's dependence on devices and applications. And then as an aside, you can see this in New Zealand on the media, who I think are being reckless and irresponsible as regards to children's health. Potential negative impacts of the immediate and long-term use of those devices by children has never been adequately evaluated in terms of safety for their mental and physical development, although there are studies that show the conditioning of children on social media has a significant impact on their mental health. The President also emphasised the need for the controlled and age-related optimal exploitation of technology as a tool and not as substitutional to the human relations and substantial education. This is very true. We need to be focusing on interpersonal relationships, and this stuff on a social basis has interfered with that and greatly influenced the mental health of our young people. She goes on, even if the risks are not universally accepted by a limited number of scientists, I'd agree with that, a limited number, considering their seriousness and the existing scientific evidence, we are not entitled to exposing our children to them, practically turning them into experimental animals. Now, the Cyprus Minister of Health expressed his full support for the work of the committee and stressed that the Ministry of Health recognises that the results of research on the health effects of the electronic cloud and other negative environmental phenomena are no longer considered as hypotheses, but rather these are scientific evidence demonstrating the harmful effects of human exposure to an altered natural environment on physical, spiritual and mental human health. He continued by stating that on the basis of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Nicosia Declaration 2017 of the Cyprus Medical Association, the Vienna Austrian Medical Chambers, and the Cyprus National Committee on Environment and Children's Health, and other relevant decisions taken at European and international level, our actions will focus to limit as far as possible the unreasonable use of electronic means of communication and its consequences. Then we go on to the Environmental Commission, who says, there is an urgent need to inform and raise awareness about the need to drastically reduce the use and exposure of children and embryos to radiation, especially at home and at school, where children spend at least 60 to 90% of their time, depending on their age. Therefore, by adopting all the data in relation to the existing documentation, the Office of the Commissioner of Environment actively supports the campaign with the aim of implementing the precautionary principle. Then we have the Executive Director of the Archbishop Makarıos III Hospital, also known as NAM3. She said, we are reducing direct and passive exposure of children to non-ionizing radiation. We protect the children. He pointed out that the pilot project indicated, among other things, that the use of Wi-Fi at the Pediatric Intensive Therapy Unit, P2, creates levels of continuous and uninterrupted passive as well as significant active exposure at levels much higher than biologically based safety criteria. After dismantling Wi-Fi from P2 and providing wired connections via Ethernet, the exposure levels dramatically dropped to safe and well below biological limits. He talks about the avoidance of carrying and using mobile phones and smartphones by parents and staff in the children's wards and chambers. And he's also referred to the excellent conditions in terms of exposure level at the neonatal unit, where no Wi-Fi signals close to those chambers, as well as the intention to extend the project and the promotion of the hospital into an international pioneer models children's hospital with reduced exposure to, among others, possibly carcinogenic and neurotoxic agent. This is backed up by a senior physician there who mentioned in a presentation the scientific evidence and potential effects of EM fields and those of addiction is strong enough and overturns the arbitrary and non-scientifically proven assumptions that EMF, RF can only cause tissue heating and is safe. The assumption that radiation does not affect DNA because this radiation does not cause ionization is also wrong. 90% of reliable research papers have shown that EMF, RF damages DNA via other mechanisms, mainly the radiation-driven mechanisms of free radicals and oxidative stress. Brain DNA is especially vulnerable. Today, recent research has almost completed the puzzle of documentation, indicating that it could be rather classified rather than a class 2B carcinogen to a human carcinogen class 1. This shows what can happen when concerned people, independent of the industry, independent of any other leverage, come together with common sense. And it puts into perspective the approach that's happening here in New Zealand that is ignoring the effects that could be catastrophic to children's health. Nothing could be more serious. Thank you.